Saturday. So excited to share this with you all today. I really wanted to make this video because I had some time that I was working with a client and they are really looking to step into another phase of their life. They're transitioning from being a full-time person at home with their family and going back into the workplace. And so it made me think about how it's so important to really take time to shift your identity if you want to grow faster. And so it's not just this person, but I've had another client, desiring to grow in her career. And a lot of the time that we spent to help her make quicker decisions was so that she can shift her identity to a current employee where she was working to being at a higher level somewhere else. And so I really wanted to make this video because I think it's so important for us to know that it does not have to take long for you to leap into a different phase of your life. It doesn't have to take long for you to get a different position, to get a new job, to make more money, to have more peace in your life. Whatever it is that's on your mind that you want to have more of in your life, more influence with others, more impact with others, more money, it doesn't have to take long. All you need to do is shift your identity. It is so important that you shift who you think you are right now into who you desire to be. And so I really want to talk today about how you can do this because it is the fastest way to make change. And I know this because every single client that I work with, when we get together, I'm always asking them, what are your goals? What are the things that you desire to do? And many of them talk about things that they desire to do as if it's far off, or they've been working years to see it happen. And a lot of times when we get down to doing the deep inner work that I do with them, we get down to the fact that they are in their own way. The only reason some of these things didn't happen as quickly as they liked is because they were the ones in the way, being so tied up into their current identity that was comfortable. And that's the thing. The identity that we live, the way that we live every day, it's comfortable to us. It's our everyday normal. And when we think about the things that we desire to do in the future or our future selves, it seems so far away. And it kind of gives us comfort that it's something that we don't need to work on because it's so far in the distance. Yet, in our present lives, it feels like we can't live another day in the way that we're living because we keep looking toward that new way of living. Yet we are telling ourselves that it'll be something that we'll do later. And that's the problem. We are really having an issue with closing the gap between who we are and what we desire to do. This is something I share with a lot of those that I train in leadership, is that is usually the biggest issue, is that we desire something that we are not shifting ourselves so that we can be available to have it. And so I want you to learn today really just the importance of shifting your identity, how fast shifting your identity can get you closer to what you want, and to give you a couple of tips on how to do that. So I do have my notes here. So really wanted to talk a little bit about just the reason that most of us don't take the time to shift our identity and we get involved in all the tips and tricks and strategies that people tell us to do is because we're worried about what people are going to think about us. That is the number one reason why people are afraid to not be who they are right now and be who they actually desire to be. They're afraid about what people think. And I am that person. I have been that person when I was deciding to catapult myself from being an executive director at my nonprofit and go into leadership training, speaking, and consulting full time. I had a hard time wondering if people were going to see me as a person that was a leadership, trainer and consultant when I had done work in nonprofit for so long. And so I was worried about what people would think of me when I was on the other side of it. So it made me too afraid to jump into it for a long time. And then on the flip side, I was worried about what people thought about me that had been working with me in nonprofit all these years, thinking that, oh, you're not working with the community anymore. You're going with corporate. You don't really care about, youth like you say you do because you're leaving us to do that. So I had worry and fear about what people thought on either side. And so for years, it really kept me stuck, and I was really toiling within myself on whether or not the dreams and the desires I had to uplift women in more of a leadership space, in a life change space, and working with more adults, honestly, and speaking and traveling and all of that. Was it wrong for me to want those things because of the things that I was currently doing at that time? And so fear of what people will think and say and behave like after you've made your decision is usually a lot of the reasons why people feel paralyzed in their decisions, and it paralyzed me. And so one thing that really helped me get over that is having a coach. I had a coach that, really helped me start thinking about what do I actually desire. Because at the end of the day, nobody has to live your life except you. You're the one that has to deal with the years that you're waiting to make decisions for yourself. And so having her help me to uncover some of those fears and really get down to what I desire helped me overcome worrying about those things. I've even had clients of my own that talk about worries about the future, and that's what keeps them stuck. But at the end of the day, when you think about all the things that you worry about, if you haven't even taken one step toward that goal, you don't even need to worry about all the other things because you haven't done anything yet. And so it was so funny. I would bring up to my coach different things that I was worried about, like, oh, well, what if when I leave, people say this about me? And it's like, well, you'll never know what people are going to say if you don't even take the steps to leave. Like, you're already worried about things that don't exist. And so many times our minds will keep us in the same place with worries that don't even exist. We're like making up more things to worry about, because going from being super comfortable in what you're doing to a place where now it's a bit more uncomfortable for you, it really shakes up our nervous system. It really makes us feel like we're really a fish out of water. And so instead of feeling those feelings and feeling the discomfort and all the things that come with newness, it's way easier to stay put. And so it takes a lot of effort to just make ourselves take the action, all right? So taking the action can get you way closer than to sit with thinking about all the what ifs and all the fears. Now, there's nothing wrong with feeling those feelings. I think it's really important to understand why you feel the way you do. But at the end of the day, you need to put a timer on that and make a decision to get moving. And we'll talk more about that as we move along. So one reason, if you're feeling that right now, if you're feeling this, feeling that you are worried about what people are going to say or how they're going to treat you and all the things when you start making new decisions with your life, then you know that this is a good time for you to shift your identity. If you're in that space, it's just because your nervous system is scrambling around for all the excuses to keep you from moving forward. Another one is we don't think well of ourselves. And so I have been this person. A lot of my clients, I've talked to them and really walked them through helping them think about themselves differently, because it's been a reason why they haven't stepped into that new identity. They haven't stepped into that CEO space. They haven't stepped into that business owner space. They haven't stepped into the space of living somewhere differently or showing up in their current space differently, like a leader in all the things, being someone that speaks up for themselves, whatever those identity traits or characteristics are, or actually moving themselves out of their environments to a different position, a different company, a different industry, a different way of living. All of those things have sometimes been paralyzed, not because of the fear of what other people think, more of how they think about themselves. And sometimes the way we think about ourselves are really projected by those around us. We don't even realize how much what people are saying around us make us start thinking twice about how we feel about ourselves and the ability that we have. And so, for instance, I can think sometimes that, my family would be afraid of some of the decisions I would make. So when I was talking about moving away, they weren't necessarily afraid of me moving away, but, it's a lot of those questions about, hey, did you check this out? Did you check this out? Make sure you, think about this. And it would have me start questioning my decisions, questioning what I want to do because of the concern of others. So it's not that people are wrong, but sometimes we get some of the things that we think about ourselves because of what other people are saying to us about our decisions, or they are really projecting what they would do or not do. Oh, I wouldn't do that, or I've done that before and that hasn't worked. And so sometimes when we share things with other people, they're not telling us not to do it, but when they say they wouldn't do it, and especially if it's someone that we really respect or love and trust, we start thinking differently about ourselves and our ability. And so something to really watch out for when we're trying to make this leap or deciding to do something different is what are the things being said around you, and what are some of the things that you currently think about yourself and your ability to do what it is that you have in front of you. If you find yourself saying that some of the things that you think are very negative, or they're really thoughts that you have on a regular basis that aren't thoughts that are motivating, then you know you're in a place where, okay, that is where I need to focus on taking action in, so that I can start switching my identity to one that is going to get me to where I want to go a lot quicker. So it's either fear, right? Fear of what other people are thinking, what other people are going to say. And then it could also be, it could be just the thoughts you're having about yourself and your ability to do things as a result of what other people have said. All right. So the last thing I wanted to share is that, sometimes we think more time is needed to get confident. So this is also another way for you to know that it's time for you to make a shift if this is a thought that you've been having. And this happens so much when I'm working with clients, that they just want more time. And this is the interesting thing, is that it's not like they need more of anything. They don't really need more time, because your mind, if you give it more time to think about a thing, it's just going to think about a thing all the way up until the edge. So if you say, oh yeah, I need about 2 years to think about it, you're going to be in that same position for 2 years, and you're probably not going to think about it for real, until almost the end of the 2 years. So now you've spent all this time not really moving anything forward, and you've been stuck in the same life that you said that you want to be different, for nothing to be different. It's different if you're saying like, hey, I'm going to do these things along the way, and that's going to get me to this certain end goal. But if you're talking about, I'm not even going to make a decision for another 2 or 3 years, then I would go on to say that you are not using that time wisely, unless it's really not something that you desire to do right now. And that's real. Sometimes we have different obligations, or we just have different things in our life that are going on, and they become a priority over maybe one of the things that I explained. Maybe it's more of a priority than making more income, more of a priority than spending more time in some of your really healthy relationships or important relationships. Maybe it's more important than starting a business. Maybe it's important than, really sharing your passion with the world, because you really desire to do philanthropic things. I don't know, because I don't know your life. But you know what those things are. So sometimes they don't become a big priority, and so we put it off. I also challenge my clients in times like this, because my wondering is, maybe you have put too much pressure on yourself, that you need time for it to be this huge, big thing in your mind, when you really don't need time to start anything. You don't need time to start anything. If it's something that you desire to do, you can start right now. A lot of times we get confused with starting and the end result. We look at the end result having to be what actually happens when we start. And I know that sounds crazy, but that is really what ends up happening. I talk to clients, and for instance, I had a client that had a product that they wanted to put out there in the market, and they got so many people excited about doing it, but they were really stopped, because they were like, I don't know if I can fill all these orders, and what if I keep getting more orders, and I won't have enough time to do it. And I'm like, listen, you're not getting any orders right now, because you're not producing anything, you're not getting clients. Let your future self worry about that problem. Right now, start serving people, and it will help you learn what you need, so that you can move forward when you start having bigger orders and bigger clients and all of that. And so sometimes we make up problems for ourselves that are so far off that we don't even start. And at the end of the day, when you start, your far off problem is really not the problem that you would do right now. And I get it. Especially, this is my second business, and it's probably kind of like my third. This is what I'm doing right now, coaching, speaking, and leadership training. This is, like my second business. And I do understand wanting to create things in a way so that you have like a really great foundation. But what I also have learned as an entrepreneur and coaching other people that have started businesses and things like that, that you will figure it out as you go. There are going to be some foundational things, but the epitome of being a business owner or starting anything new is you get to be friendly and flexible. There are so many different ways that I position my business that I do differently now. And there would have been no way for me to know what I wanted to do at one point until I started getting into it. Like, I mean, initially you'll know, but then there are going to be other things that you decide that you want to do along the way because it's what feels good to you. Or it's the way your life is set up. So because your life is set up a certain way, you're like, you know what? I'm not doing X, Y, and Z anymore. That's not the way I want to do business anymore. And so you'll learn those things as you go. But the point is, you got to start. And it can start small. You're not going to be this $100 million business owner or someone that has all of these, credentials, blah, 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 in 2 days. It's just not happening. If anything like that happens, it's because you only saw the tip of the iceberg. You did not see all the work that someone had did prior to getting that notoriety or whatever it is that they're getting that you're seeing and making you feel like you got to have everything in the row. So I know this is this last one, is the one that I feel like hits a lot of people in some way, because when you think about it, we waste a lot of time just not making a decision, right? We waste a lot of time not making a decision because we think we need more time, but what we're really saying is, I'm afraid to make a decision right now. And because I'm afraid to make a decision right now, it's easier to say that I need more time. That is what is actually being said most times when people are saying that. Not 100% because I can't read minds. But most times we're saying, I don't want to make a decision right now because I'm afraid I'm going to make the wrong one and I don't have enough information, so it's easier to say, I need more time. You don't need more time. You actually need to just get quiet and understand what you actually desire and get really attuned to what you actually desire and make a decision. Because at the end of the day, there are risks to be had on both sides. Whether you do it or don't do it, there is some risk. Whether it's mentally, emotionally, in some cases maybe physical risk, but most times it's mentally and emotionally. So you get to ask yourself, well, what is the risk of me waiting more, and what is the risk of me, just going ahead and doing it? And a lot of times, if you just start, you'll realize it's not as hard as it seems. You got to get that momentum going. All right, so like I said, the things that really, keep us in analysis paralysis, and if this sounds like you, then you are in need of identity shift. Or another one, maybe you are already in the middle of, one that you've had recently, like maybe you just went from working in some industry to another industry. You've already taken a leap, but now that you're in it, you need to really show up differently in the position that you're in. So you need to take another, leap in the way that you think about who you are, because now you're in this big position, but you're not acting like that person. You just got the job, but you're not acting like this person. Or maybe you are in a business and you've had your business for a while and you've been working on your business, but you know that you are not showing up like the CEO that you need to show up as, the way you talk to your clients, the way that you present yourself in front of others. Maybe there are ways that the way that you're showing up is not aligned to being the CEO that you are, or being aligned to the leader that you are. Or maybe, you are just now starting to be someone that is taking care of themselves and in a relationship, and you're just not showing up as your true self. These are just all indicators to show that you need to have an identity shift. And the fastest way to have change in your life is to make an identity shift. I talk about this book all the time. It is Atomic Habits, one of my favorites, by James Clear. And I always talk about the quote in the book that the quickest way to habit change is identity change. If you change your identity, you will change your habits. And when you change your habits, those are the small changes that actually change who you are and what you do in your life. And so the way that I want to give you a couple of tips on how to really quickly shift your identity. So I'm looking at my notes. So in my book, I have a book called Get Your Life Today, 7 Success Hacks for Life, Leadership, and Business. And the link will be in the below after the live. But when I talk about it, one of my chapters is confidence comes when you decide. When you make a decision with your life, that is when confidence comes. And, an example of this is when I decided that, I'm going to take the leap and I am leaving my job full time. And confidence came to do it. I have been talking about it for a while. I have been saying it, when you're complaining about the things that you want to do with your life, you start venting to people. I was doing that, but I didn't really decide. I just wanted to keep talking about me deciding. But when I truly decided, it was nothing. It happened so quick. I made that decision. I made the phone call to my prior supervisor. We had a conversation about my different options. And there you have it, right? So things don't have to take long. We are the ones taking long to decide. So when you need the confidence for something, it's really you're telling yourself, I need to make a decision. When you make a decision, everything else will fall into place because you'll start doing things aligned with that decision. Will you be all the way on the other side with things looking like, a white picket fence? No. But you will be setting things in motion. And I think that is the biggest thing that people need to see the difference, is that all because you make a decision to do something, to change who you are, to stand into a different identity, it is not a magic pill that everything is going to be 100% perfection when you make that decision. What you are doing is setting the things that need to happen in motion for you to really step into that thing. And so just like one of my clients that I'm working with now that is stepping into a different position in her industry, and she wants to show up different. So she already made the biggest decision, and that's like, leave the way you are now in the job that you have been in. And now she's setting in motion, okay, there's some things I need to start doing differently to step into this different position that I desire to be in. And so I really want you to consider, when you want to step into something new, that you just need to make a decision. A decision to do something new will set you into a place of starting to make everyday decisions that are aligned with that decision, that will help you get the momentum going to step you into that new identity. And so this is regardless of whether you need a new job, whether you want to step into the new identity of a leader in a director or a manager position, if you want to start a business, if you want to make more money. I have a great story about making more money. One day I just decided I didn't want to be broke anymore. I'm like, I'm done with this. I'm done with this life. And it wasn't that I was all of a sudden out of debt in one day. It actually took me 8 years to pay off $86,000 in debt. But the point is, I made a decision, and then all of the little decisions I made from that point started falling in line. And so the biggest challenge is that a lot of times when we have made decisions, we get discouraged when our human self does not stick with this decision, right? So for instance, me paying off my debt. There were times where I didn't stay on my budget, or there were times where I had to make other big financial decisions while I was paying off my debt. And it's in those very specific times when there's challenges that show up that cause us to think, oh, am I really going to be out of debt? Or am I really a leader? Am I really a business owner? And that is the time that we have to remind ourselves that we are on a journey. Yes, I made the decision to be out of debt. This is just a situation. And I'm going to get myself, back on the track that I want to be on to see my end goal. I know this is something that really happened big for me when I was thinking about myself and really shifting into entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, literally my whole life. I was selling lemonade as a kid on lemonade stands. My first business with two friends is a nonprofit dance company that still exists, that we've had for 20 years this year. And then I now am a trainer, speaker, coach, author in one business. I also used to sell cookies. I used to bake a lot. I still like to bake, but I sold cookies. So I've always had side hustles. I've always had other businesses my whole life, but I also have always had another job, with an exception of a few years of my, tenure at different places. And so I had this thought that you're not a real entrepreneur unless you are like all the way not on a W-2 check. And so I would suffer in silence from the space of feeling like I was less than, or I wasn't a real entrepreneur, because I decided to have a full-time job and an extra check. And so I don't remember when it was, but I remember having that shift of, who says that it's something wrong with collecting two checks? Who says that doesn't make you an entrepreneur? It's like, A, do you run another business? If the answer is yes, then you are a business owner. You run another business, you're a business owner. It doesn't matter if you have another part-time job. It doesn't matter if you work full-time or not. It does not matter. If you are running something else, that is who you are. And it was something about that that made me just stand up into who I was and talk about myself from that place without this fear of rejection and without this feeling of less than. And that was the fastest way to grow me as an entrepreneur, is really seeing myself as such and stepping into it from a place of this is who I am. And I don't have to shrink about that just because I have another job, as if that is wrong. Like, who decided that you're not a real, business owner if you have a job? Nobody decided. We make that stuff up in our minds because it's just not true. I think one of the things that really helped me with that is one of the entrepreneurs that I really admire. His name is Paul Brunson, if you've heard of him. And he was really well known as a matchmaker, and he does so much work. But when I started reading his books and just kind of following him, maybe almost 10 years ago, I was so enamored because I'm like, I really love the work that he does. A lot of life coaching, a lot of coaching around relationships, and just some of the things that I really resonate with. And I was wondering, like, I wonder what he does, as an entrepreneur, like, to, continue to sustain himself with his revenue and all of that. And then I think in his book or an article, I read that, he just had all these different things that he did to bring in income. It was like a laundry list of different things that he did. I forget all of the things because I know he wasn't matchmaking anymore at the time. He was an author. He was doing a podcast. He also had some really awesome, it seems like, jobs that were with or contracts with other companies or government officials. He was just doing other things. And I don't want to misquote him, go look him up on Wikipedia or whatever. But I know that he was doing other things. And it was like a light bulb went off for me that you didn't have to call yourself an entrepreneur and feel like it had to look like what everyone else said it needed to look like. And that allowed me to stand fully in myself and be able to stand up as a CEO of my own company and own that, okay, I might not have the story of other people, but I have a story. Like, I have created a six-figure nonprofit, multiple six-figure nonprofit over the last couple of years with my two friends. I've been able to, groom people to be leaders in organizations as a coach, as a trainer, as a speaker. And I've been able to do that as in my full-time job, but I've also been able to do that in my business. And so it's been so amazing to be able to realize that we are the only ones holding ourselves back from the things that we want because of how we think about who we are. And when we shift how we think about who we are, it is going to just hurry up all the things that come along with you shifting in that way. So you don't have to do a whole bunch of things most times. Most of the work is really going to be you deciding who are you going to show up like. And because you make that decision, you start creating habits that are aligned with that decision, and then you'll start having more of what you want, but it is the action taking. So if you want to quickly shift your identity, one is make a decision. You get to decide. Confidence comes when you decide. Decide that I don't need more time. I just need to decide this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. Once you decide this is who you are and what you're doing, start taking small actions now. There is nothing else to do but the actions that are aligned with who you say you are. I'll give you a quick example and then I'm going to wrap things up. But I wrote in my book, the book that I told you about already, Get Your Life Today. I ran a half marathon in 2019. And when I ran this half marathon, I had never run a marathon or a half marathon at all in my life. But I was so inspired by seeing the Philly marathon this year, that year, that is. And when I saw it, I was so inspired to see so many different people running this marathon and different walks of life, different abilities. And I asked myself, what is in my way of doing something like that? And it was never something that was on my bucket list before. But you know how you see someone do something or you experience something and suddenly it just kind of wakes up something in you to be inspired to do the same thing? That is exactly what this was. And so I decided, you know what? Let me find out when the next half marathon is because I'm going to run a half marathon. And so I decided to run the Love Run, the Philly Love Run. And I was like 4 months away from the actual race. And I had never ran a half marathon. Now, I've always been a dancer, and I have ran track, and I used to do some running groups, but I've never run more than 3 miles. And so this would have been a little more than that for me, but I did know how to at least get to a 3 mile space in terms of like long distance running. And so what happened once I clicked register and whatever on the Philly Love Run, paperwork online, I like was immediately flooded with anxiety. Like, what did I just do? I've never run, this before. I don't even, are people going to think this is a dumb decision because I just decided to do it on a whim, just all the things. But it was so important for me to do something that was uncomfortable to me. And at the time, I really wanted to get back into some kind of workout regimen. And so this ended up being a thing. So, okay, I signed up for this marathon. And because it was such a quick shift, I had 4 months to prepare for it, had never prepared for this before. I started doing what you do when you decide to make a decision. I started making phone calls. I was like, who do I know that knows how to do long distance running, who has trained for things like this before? And I got on the phone with them, started training, using some of the things that they told me about using. I got the Run Club app for Nike, the Nike Run Club app. I went to the store and got my feet fitted for like real running shoes. I got compression socks. I got a good playlist going. I just did all the things that are associated with people that typically train for long distance running. And just like that, those small things started coming with me deciding that I'm a long distance runner. I'm preparing for a half marathon. And I would never call myself a long distance runner before. I'm like, yeah, I like to run, it's fun, But I would never call myself that before. But I started calling myself a runner. I would associate myself with a long distance runner. I would very much so consider myself someone that is athletic. So I would always, go with the thought when people would say it, but sometimes I would push it back before. But this time I was stepping right into it. Like, yeah, I'm about to run a half marathon, and talking about it as if this is who I am. Like, this is who I am and what I do. And all my decisions that I was making to start training and all of that, they were so tied to the decision I made. There was no turning back for me. There was no turning back. And I think sometimes that is the thing that keeps us from being our biggest self, because we know that there's no turning back. But I, really want to encourage you that if there is no turning back and you get what you want, was it a wrong decision? What is the harm in getting the life that you actually want if there's no turning back to it? I'd rather have no turning back to the life that I want. But so many times we stop ourselves from doing the things that we know we need to do to get that end goal for what we desire in our life, that we just, we don't do it at all. We're afraid to be wrong. We're afraid, again, with all these other things, what people think. And we start, second guessing ourselves and all the things. And so I really want to encourage you today that make a decision that is going to change your life, not in 3 years, but like right now. And so if this sounds like you, if you know that shifting your identity is something that is super important to the things that you desire to do, maybe you have a lot of amazing things that you want to see happen in your life, and you've already done so much. And so you know what it takes to leap. And it's really important that when you know what it takes to leap, then you know that what you're feeling right now is normal, but sometimes you need a little assistance to get over the hump. I had created amazing things in my life, so I was no stranger to accelerating what I needed to do or making a shift in who I needed to be to get the things that I know I desire. But I definitely needed a lot of help when I wanted to shift into the space I'm in right now, and that's what I did. I went and got it. And so if you are someone that has already been that person that has taken leaps, but you need some help making this shift into this new space you need to be into now, I am starting a class, Identity Shift. I'm starting a class called Identity Shift, and I would love to have you a part of it. It is for women that are professionals, that are leaders, that are business owners, that are aspiring to do some of those things because they've done great things, but there is something greater on the other side of something that they've been thinking about, considering, or working on, and just know they're not showing up as their fullest potential as they could. And I really desire to help those women just deepen that so that they can really make some quick quick moves that are going to impact not just their life, their income, their influence, their joy, because they're deciding to be the person that they already see in their head right now. We're not going to delay this any longer. And it takes practice to do this, and it takes having radical obedience to make decisions that are going to be aligned with what you want. So if that is you, go to my website, www.desireecocroft.com, and just click on courses. And it is the group course that is coming up soon called Identity Shift. I really look forward to working with all of you that are interested. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If there are other things that you want to see more, please put it in the comments. Please like, please share if this is something that you found helpful to you. And I look forward to seeing you the next time around. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a great day. Bye.